Hello, really welcome back to my channel. So for today's video I'm going to show you how I made this little axolotl sculpture. So at the moment I'm working on 3 different pieces which are all axolotls, and this is like the most basic one. I just wanted to share it with you today because I'll show the rest of them like on my Instagram and stuff, but I just wanted to share like the basic techniques that I use to make my sculptures because quite a lot of people ask me how I do it. Basically I just use a polymer clay and then resin as well to set them really hard so they end up with like a really kind of professional finish. Like this feels like what you would kind of get like out of like a blind bag or something. Like it's so hard. I really love the technique that I've got going on and thought I would share it with you guys just in case you want to create your own sculptures. So yeah, I thought I'd share my basic kind of axolotl that I've already made, and I will share the other designs on my Instagram and stuff like that, so be sure to follow me over there. If you aren't already subscribed to my channel, I would love to have you here, so please be sure to click that subscribe button if you want to, of course. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up before you exit off, and I'm just going to get straight on into it. So to make the kind of middle of my sculpture, I always use tin foil, just curling it up in my hand, balling it up and just shaping it down to the piece I want. I find that tin foil can be quite hard to press and actually hurt your fingers sometimes, so I do end up using like pens like this, like smooth like round pens, to kind of really get the curves going on and really flatten out some pointy bits. I find the smoother you can get your inner piece, the better that it will be on the next kind of stage. So I just kind of flatten it out as much as possible, and then I go in with a polymer clay and just coat all of that kind of center foil piece just to kind of make my first layer of the sculpture. So the clay that I'm using on this piece is Fimo Soft in the colour Flesh in the light shade. I have all sorts of shade of this, but I just had this one on hand today and I thought I would just use this one. So I just take small balls of the polymer clay at a time, spreading it all the way around the foil, blah blah blah, and then once I have a good layer on there, probably around about 4 to 5 millimeters thick, I bake it in the oven for around about 20 minutes. Once out and cooled down, I usually sand down at this stage just to make sure that it's kind of nice and smooth, and any bits that need filling in, I'll just add some more polymer clay, round it out a bit more, and then bake it again before adding on any details. Sometimes, as you can see here, I use nail files, like high grit ones. I use like sandpaper, just whatever I have to hand really, whatever's floating around on my desk that I reach for first just comes and does the job. So once the body part was then made, I popped 4 balls onto the bottom of the piece and sculpted them. So I actually used my nails to really press and blend the clay into it, and then I used this like giant doll making needle, just again whatever I had on my desk, just to kind of make all the details pop. Then I baked in the oven for another 20 minutes. Once cooled down, I then added on the gills of the axolotl just by rolling out some snakes, cutting off the rounded edges and then blending them in with the needle. Once I was happy with the shape, I baked it for the final time. Once cooled, I was then able to paint my sculpture, so I used the brand Pebeo acrylic paints for my sculptures usually. I would also recommend the Royal and Llangnickel ones for smaller details. They are slightly cheaper than the Pebeo ones, but to be honest, I'd probably recommend the Pebeo ones over any because they're so opaque, and if you could afford them, I would recommend them. They're not that expensive to be honest, but they are in the medium price range, and yeah, if you can afford them, I would probably recommend using those over any other acrylics. To paint on the details on the axolotl, I just used a small nail art brush. This is something that I recommend you doing if you have small bits on your sculpture, just nail art brushes rather than small paint brushes. I mean, they're usually a fraction of the cost. You can find them in like loads of places such as like Home Bargains, Poundland, that sort of stuff, for a really good assortment of mini brushes. To add the face on this particular piece, I used a Posca paint pen, which is basically acrylic paint in like a pen form, and that allows you to get really small lines as well, so it might be worth looking into them if you kind of have loads of details. To make sure that doesn't smudge, I usually just glaze over those bits first, just bumping on some UV resin and then curing that down. 9 times out of 10 I use UV resin, and on this particular piece I coated the whole entire thing, cured it with UV light, and then I just sanded it back lightly so that it wasn't overly shiny. So that is how I make my basic sculptures, just using the foil base on the inside, coat it in polymer clay. I usually bake around about 2 to 3 times during the process, just while adding on, because I find it easier rather than like smudging down one bit while I go sculpt the other bit. And then I obviously paint it and then coat it in a resin. I have sanded this back slightly so it's more of a matte finish rather than a really shiny piece. I don't know, sometimes I don't really want a high gloss kind of finish, so I find that just sanding it back just a little bit to take that shine off can sometimes give the pieces just that little extra touch. So yeah, this is how this one has turned out. Like I said, if you want to see the other designs that I make, then be sure to come over on my Instagram. I'll be posting them sometime this week. So yeah, hopefully you have enjoyed this video, and I will see you again tomorrow for another one, because I'm still doing daily uploads. Hopefully you have enjoyed it, and I will see you then. Bye.